In order to understand how to do problem 3-4, it's important to know that activities or things that affect retained earnings. And so what you'll want to have in your notes is beginning retained earnings. Beginning retained earnings. When you have your balance at the start of the period for retained earnings, retained earnings are increased by net income. So the retained earnings is just the net income for the company throughout the life of the company. Now, if this was a net loss, then of course it would reduce the amount of retained earnings. The other thing that affects retained earnings is dividends. If the company pays dividends, it will come out of retained earnings. And so we have the beginning balance in retained earnings increases with net income and decreases with dividends, and that gives us our new ending balance of retained earnings. And so keeping that in mind, let's take a look at problem 3-4, the statement of stockholders' equity. Now, stockholders' equity includes common stock and retained earnings, and it says in the most recent financial statements they reported $50 million of net income and $8 million of retained earnings. The previous retained earnings were $780 million. How much in dividends were paid to the shareholders during the year? All the dividends that they declared were actually paid. And so this problem, we know that the most recent financials, they reported $8 million in retained earnings. So we know what the balance, $810 million of retained earnings. We know what the balance in retained earnings is now. It says the previous retained earnings were $780 million. And so we have beginning retained earnings of $780 million. And it also tells us that they reported $50 million of net income. $50 million. And so all you have to do, the question is, how much did they pay in dividends? So mathematically, I'm pretty sure that you'll be able to figure out the amount of dividends that they paid in order to get to this ending balance of $810 million. And that's all there is to that problem. The main idea is to be clear that you understand the events that affect retained earnings.